I'm way into Pewabic pottery. It's a Detroit-based pottery started by Mary Chase Perry Stratton.
And when did you start potting?
1903, I think. Before that, I think she was doing some china painting. To my knowledge, she was encouraged by one of her benefactors, Mr. Freer, to try to develop a patinated glaze, much like a buried Middle Eastern glaze, like in glasses.
Like Roman glass.
Exactly.
These works belong to Pewabic Pottery of Detroit, founded in 1903 by Mary Chase Perry Stratton, one of the most influential figures in the American arts and crafts movement. Stratton began with matte-glazed pottery in earthy greens and experimental tones, personally throwing, carving, and finishing many of the earliest pieces herself. Influenced by ancient Middle Eastern ceramics and the shimmering surfaces of Roman glass, she later developed the iridescent glazes that would become Pewabic's signature. The three objects represent distinct phases of that evolution. An early matte-glazed vessel from around 1907 to 1908 that reflects Stratton's hands-on, one-of-a-kind approach, and today is typically valued at around $25,000 to $35,000. An iridescent form from roughly 1912 to 1917, where the glaze becomes organic, fluid, and luminous, with an auction value generally in the range of $10,000 to $15,000, and a later hand-cut tile inspired by Alice in Wonderland, showing how Pewabic translated its artistic language into decorative architectural art, usually valued at about $1,500 to $2,000. Together, they tell a coherent story of innovation, craftsmanship, and artistic ambition that secured Pewabic's place in American ceramic history.
My dad inherited these from his aunt. He was chosen to go pick stuff out of the estate, and everyone else just kind of picked things that they needed for their house, just kind of like TVs and things, and he chose these. Everyone else thought they were really ugly.
And any idea where your aunt got them from?
I don't know. She was a businesswoman who just buy a lot of art like this, so.
What you brought in are a pair of enamel vases that were made in Vienna in the 1880s.
The pair of vases belong to a distinctive tradition of Viennese decorative arts from the late 19th century, created in Vienna during the 1880s, at a time when Austrian workshops were pushing enamel work to its technical and artistic limits. They are made using enamel on copper, combined with silver elements that have naturally oxidized over time, forming the dark bands that frame the surface. Every part of the vases is treated as a canvas. Rococo-inspired panels wrap around the bodies, with decoration extending not only to the sides and backs but even to the undersides and interior, areas normally left plain. Particularly striking are the dragon motifs, where translucent enamel was layered to achieve a jewel-like depth. The segmented construction reveals advanced craftsmanship, with individual components fired separately at different temperatures and then assembled, a complex process rarely attempted on such a large scale. While many Viennese enamel objects survive only in small formats, these unusually large and remarkably well-preserved examples demonstrate both the ambition and virtuosity of late 19th century Viennese metal and enamel artistry.
In a retail setting, these are worth between $20,000 and $30,000.
Oh, wow, that's a lot more than I expected.
I bought this from a dealer years ago before the internet. It had no mark on it. So nobody knew exactly what it was. I just thought it was beautiful. And so as time went on, I noticed an article in the Antique Trader. They mentioned these monumental vases made for the 1904 Louisiana Purchase World Fair. So I contacted the museum, sent them a picture, and they said it was one of the vases that had been lost or gone.
Rather than announcing itself immediately through history, this monumental vase first commands attention through its imposing scale and refined decoration, inviting closer inspection before revealing its deeper significance within American decorative arts. Created for the 1904 Louisiana Purchase World's Fair in St. Louis, the vase was produced in Trenton, New Jersey, a city best known at the turn of the 20th century for utilitarian ceramics, such as sinks, bathtubs, and sanitary ware. At that time, most high-end decorative ceramics in the United States were imported from Europe, and American manufacturers were rarely taken seriously as artistic competitors. The World's Fair became a decisive moment for American ambition, offering a stage on which domestic makers could demonstrate that they, too, could rival European excellence. This vase was the result of a collaboration among several Trenton ceramic firms operating under the collective name the Trenton Potteries, with artistic direction by a painter known as Wigley, whose signature appears on the surface. Along with several even larger companion pieces, it was conceived as a bold statement rather than a commercial product. The decoration reflects strong continental influence, closely resembling French Limoges or Bavarian porcelain of the period, with lavish gilding, an elegant rose border, and painterly floral motifs applied across the entire surface. The sheer scale of the object was unprecedented in American decorative ceramics at the time, underscoring both technical confidence and artistic aspiration.
I spoke to several colleagues about this, and we were all back and forth because it's unique and it's never been on the market, and what do we think it's worth? I think a fair retail price would be $25,000
Wow.
today.
I'm very, very happy with that. And I hope everyone will love it that sees it, and everything's coming up roses.
They were both purchased at estate sales, two different ones, one by my mother, which is this one, and the other one by myself, approximately 30 years ago. And
So you've had both pieces for 30 years?
at least, yes.
Wow. Talk to me about the piece, the butterscotch piece, the Grueby jar.
It is Grueby. I guess my interest is the color, and you call it the butterscotch, and the fact that it has a cover. I've never seen a piece with a cover. And the other piece, I collect butterflies, and I'm hoping that Mother will give it to me someday.
So she's not giving it to you yet, but you're working on that.
No.
At first glance, they seem like two quiet ceramic objects, but look closer and they begin to tell a much larger story about American art at the turn of the 20th century. These two pieces come from opposite sides of the United States, yet together they trace the full arc of the American arts and crafts movement. The first is a so-called Grueby jar, made in Boston around 1900, at the very beginning of the arts and crafts era in America. Its warm butterscotch glaze and softly molded, stylized surface reject realism in favor of form and color, a key principle of the movement. What makes this example especially rare is its original ceramic lid. Lids were fragile, easily broken or lost, and surviving examples that still retain a perfectly matching lid are exceptionally uncommon. The glaze on the lid and body was fired together, creating a unified visual harmony that reflects the movement's emphasis on craftsmanship and integrity of design. The second piece represents the other coast. Created by Frederick Red in Santa Barbara between 1914 and 1916, it belongs to the later phase of arts and crafts pottery. The stylized butterflies are decorative rather than literal, echoing the same philosophy seen in the earlier Grueby jar. Red was a major figure in American ceramics, trained in England, active across the country, and later known for developing fiesta ware. This Santa Barbara period, however, is widely regarded as his most artistic and expressive work.
Normally this piece of Grueby, which you would see like this without the lid, I would estimate at auction for about $1,000 to $1,500. With the lid intact, my auction estimate would be $3,000 to $4,000. So it triples the value of the piece. It's significant. Believe it or not, a piece of Frederick Reed like this on today's market at auction, if I had this as an estimate, about $10,000 to $15,000.
Oh my God. Oh.
I hope your mom's happy too.
Yeah, oh, she will be.
My grandmother worked for the SEGs, the Saturday Evening Girls. That was a group of young immigrant women, and she was one of them. She immigrated from Lithuania when she was about 10 at the turn of the century. And she had these pots and many, many others that I have at home.
And this
she
is
loved
her
it.
right here?
Yes, it is. That's right in front of the pottery that moved from the North End to Brighton.
The Saturday Evening Girls were a progressive collective of young immigrant women formed in Boston's North End in the early 20th century. What began as a reading and cultural group soon became a vital support network, helping its members learn English, share knowledge, and adjust to American life. Many of these women had arrived from Eastern Europe as children, including the owner's grandmother, who later depended on the group for both community and financial stability while raising her family. From this environment emerged the Paul Revere Pottery, an organization remarkable for its humane working conditions at a time when industrial labor was often harsh. The women worked shorter days, had time off on Saturdays, and were encouraged to pursue education alongside craftsmanship. The vases discussed here date from the 1920s to early 1930s, a transitional period reflected in their markings and materials. Unlike the landscape and historical motifs for which Paul Revere pottery is best known, these pieces display an unexpected decorative language. Their romantic imagery, sculptural surfaces, and layered ornamentation recall English pre-Raphaelite aesthetics and continental European ceramics from Belgium and Germany between the World Wars. Traditional Paul Revere green and black glazes remain present, yet the carved and built-up decoration and subtle iridescent effects reveal a deliberate departure from earlier styles, signaling an outward-looking artistic evolution within the workshop.
I would estimate this piece for between $5,000 and $7,000. And I think also at auction, I would have to say the same, $5,000 to $7,000. It's not what people look
surprising.
for. But if this had a landscape design going around it, which is what they're known for, this would be maybe a six-figure piece. So.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's amazing. These are things I just played with, so put dried flowers in them. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
So you got this piece from your father?
Yes, he had an art gallery in the early to mid 70s, and when it closed, there was inventory left, which he brought home. And he had a couple of Picasso vases, and this is one of them. He gave it to my husband and I.
This ceramic work belongs to the group of pieces Pablo Picasso created in collaboration with the Madura pottery in Valoris, southern France. Beginning in 1947, Picasso increasingly turned to ceramics, finding in clay a new surface for ideas drawn from his paintings, quick sketches, and the local tradition of southern French folk pottery. Working with Georges and Suzanne Ramier, he explored forms that were playful, direct, and highly recognizable. Rather than decorating each piece by hand, Picasso supplied original designs that were executed by skilled Madura artisans. This process preserved his distinctive visual language while allowing the workshop's technical mastery to shape the final object. Faces, masks, animals, flowers, and suns recur throughout this body of work. The design seen here reflects Picasso's familiar face motif, with simplified lines and a spontaneous, almost doodle-like quality closely tied to his late graphic style. Madura ceramics were produced in numbered editions, sometimes large, sometimes relatively limited. Although these editioned works do not carry Picasso's handwritten signature, they have gained steady recognition and demand. Today, Picasso Madura ceramics are valued not only as decorative objects, but as an important extension of his artistic practice in the final decades of his life.
And something like this at auction now would most likely be estimated somewhere in the $12,000 to $15,000 range, and may very well get more than that.
Cool. That's wonderful. Yeah. Super.
I don't know a whole lot about it other than it was a gift from my Aunt Marilyn, and she gave it to me about 15 years ago. She purchased it from the professor from Boston University who was retiring, and he was a professor of American Indian art. And he sold off his entire collection. She bought 2 pieces. This is the one surviving piece. The other one was broken. She purchased it, it was 1959.
It's a Native American pot. Do you know the tribe that made it?
I think it's Hopi.
It is Hopi. It's from an area on the Hopi reservation called Hano. These are very, very ancient designs.
This Hopi pottery vessel originates from Hano, a village on the Hopi Reservation in northeastern Arizona, and dates to the early 20th century, likely the 1910s. Although the form draws on ancient Pueblo traditions, its artistic significance lies above all in its maker. The pot is attributed to Nampeyo of Hano, widely regarded as the most influential Pueblo potter of the 20th century, and a transformative figure in Native American ceramics. Nampeyo revitalized Pueblo pottery by studying shards of prehistoric Sikyatki pottery found near her home and reinterpreting their designs for a modern context. Her work helped re-establish a visual language that had been lost for generations and inspired an entire lineage of potters, especially within her own family. One of her defining characteristics was a strong sense of balance and symmetry, often organizing decoration into 4 distinct visual fields. This vessel is a seed jar, identifiable by its rounded body and tightly constricted neck, a form intended to regulate airflow and protect stored seeds. The surface is decorated with finely painted polychrome designs in reddish-brown and dark brown, including highly abstracted feather and bird motifs arranged in harmonious quadrants. Both the refined brushwork and the controlled geometry exemplify Nampeyo's mature style.
Do you have a feeling for value?
I don't. I know she paid $75 for it back in '59.
That was a good deal in 1959.
I figured it probably was.
I think on a retail basis, this pot would perform very well, maybe in the neighborhood of $12,000 to $15,000.
$12,000 to $15,000? Okay.
It's a very, very special pot.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's
made by
a great piece.
The greatest potter, perhaps, in North America
Really? Yeah.
of the 20th century.
Huh.
This vase was my grandfather's. He visited China for over a year in the 1920s, and it has just come down through the family. We thought that it was very old, and there is a marking on the bottom that doesn't seem to be a stamp. It seems to be painted on, so we thought maybe it was a real thing.
The story of this vase begins with Japan rather than China, even though its appearance easily invites that assumption. Created by Makuzu Kozan, one of the most important ceramic artists of the Meiji period, the work reflects a moment when Japanese artists deliberately mastered and reinterpreted classical Chinese visual language. Active from the late 19th into the early 20th century, Kozan was celebrated for his technical innovation and for bridging Eastern traditions with Western ceramic methods newly introduced from Europe. His reputation was so great that he was eventually appointed artist-in-residence to the Japanese imperial household. The vase is made of porcelain and displays a refined dialogue between underglaze and overglaze decoration. The reserved panels feature plum blossoms rendered in a distinctly Chinese style, a symbol of resilience and renewal, while the surrounding surface is covered with subtle embossed patterns derived from ancient Chinese bronze vessels. This combination of sculptural texture and painted imagery is characteristic of Kozan's most ambitious works. The mark on the base, painted in underglaze blue, deliberately resembles a Ming Dynasty inscription, yet it reads Dai Nippon Kozan Sei, meaning made by Kozan in Great Japan. Together, the form, decoration, and mark reveal a masterpiece of Meiji artistry, one that embodies Japan's confidence in engaging with the past while asserting its own artistic identity.
He introduced Japan to more Western techniques for doing ceramics from Europe, and in fact he was so important that the imperial family of Japan invited him to be their artist in residence.
Oh my goodness.
This would have been made in the late 19th century. It's in excellent condition for its age, At auction, I would put the reserve of $10,000 to $12,000.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
It was in a cabin that my father-in-law's family owned. He had inherited it from a professor at a college. My father-in-law had driven the professor and the professor's mother on a trip to New Mexico, and he was just the young guy along, I think, to drive.
And what was the date of the trip?
That was in the late 20s. It was 1927 or 28. The only documentation I have is his word of mouth.
This large ceramic vessel originates from Acoma, Pueblo in New Mexico, a community renowned for its distinctive clay that fires to a soft, pale tone, and for its exceptional ability to produce pottery with remarkably thin walls. Both characteristics are clearly and harmoniously expressed in this piece. The vessel is an olla, a traditional large storage jar used for holding water or dry goods. Its size is immediately impressive, but its true significance lies in the skill of the potter, who managed to create such a substantial form while maintaining balance, stability, and astonishingly thin walls. The lower portion displays the characteristic warm orange hue associated with Acoma pottery, while the upper surface is decorated with geometric motifs rooted in prehistoric ceramics of the region. Repeating triangles and linear patterns demonstrate a direct continuity with ancestral Pueblo traditions. Minor areas of surface breakdown at the shoulder are consistent with natural aging of the material, and overall, the vessel remains in exceptionally fine condition when considered alongside its scale and age.
Okay.
Smaller Acoma pots, especially ones that have a little bit of damage, tend to not go for a great deal of money. This sort of pot, at auction or at a good gallery in Santa Fe, I think would bring $8,000 to $12,000. These big pots in this condition are so rare, you have a really, really special piece.
I bought it at an estate sale probably 15, 20 years ago. Paid probably less than $50 for it. I just thought it was ugly.
And you told me you like big green pots.
Yeah.
Which this is.
Yeah.
Grueby collectors like big organic pieces.
Okay.
And this one is extremely organic.
This large ceramic vessel was produced by Grueby Pottery of Boston, one of the most important American art potteries of the arts and crafts movement, active primarily in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Grueby is best known for its bold, organic forms and its distinctive, thick, glossy green glazes, qualities that are strongly present in this example. The glaze is rich and unctuous, flowing heavily across the surface, with slight thinning in a few areas that collectors generally regard as a natural result of hand application rather than a defect. What most clearly distinguishes this piece is its sculptural surface. The leaves arranged around the rim were individually hand-built, carefully shaped, and curled by hand, a labor-intensive process that adds movement and depth to the form. The vessel's substantial scale, weight, and rounded, organic mass give it a powerful presence that aligns closely with the ideals of arts and crafts pottery. The marks on the base identify it as Grueby Pottery Boston and include the initials WP, confirming that the leaf decoration was executed by Wilmina Post, one of the artists associated with the workshop. Taken together, the craftsmanship, scale, and glaze place this vessel among the more desirable and visually striking examples of Grueby pottery production.
Have you thought about what it might be worth today?
About maybe $2,000 to $3,000.
We figure at auction, probably somewhere in the $10,000 to $15,000 range.
Okay.
So that's not bad for a $50 investment.
No, that's kind of stunning. It's not as ugly anymore.
No.
My husband had two aunts that had enough money to purchase nice art, and one was not married and the other was married but had no children. So it managed to get through without the kids beating it up, I guess. But
a little bit.
A little bit. It has some chips. I had an appraiser come to my house. He looked at it and he said, oh, it's chipped. It's of no value. I didn't give up on it because I liked it and my husband liked it. And I figured if it went through 112 years in his family that maybe it was worth something. So.
It is the kind of object that makes you pause, not because it is perfect, but because it feels deliberate. Small losses and worn edges suggest a long journey, yet the design remains bold and confident, as if it was never meant to fade into the background. There is a sense that this piece once stood as a statement, created to impress and to endure. This porcelain work belongs to the Amphora tradition of Turnteplitz in Austria, one of the most important centers of Art Nouveau ceramics at the turn of the 20th century. Amphora was a collective name used by several workshops known for highly sculptural, expressive forms that transformed ceramics into works of art. Produced as a cast porcelain piece, it was not unique, yet examples of this complexity are scarce today. The dramatic modeling, flowing lines, and layered figures reflect the Art Nouveau fascination with movement, fantasy, and symbolism. The mark indicating Amphora, Austria, and Paris places the piece firmly around 1900 to 1905, a period shaped by world expositions where innovation and artistic ambition defined international taste.
In terms of value, even in its present condition, I think a price at auction would be $7,000 to $9,000.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Now, if it were in perfect condition, you could probably double that price.
Wow.
That's what I said when I saw
Yeah,
him.
wow.
Even with a nick or two, he's a good looker.
My grandfather, who worked for the Norfolk and Western Railroad for years, was a major collector of antiques as well as Native American art. He's had this piece ever since I can remember. So when he passed away, I wound up with this piece and have had it for, well, probably at least 20 years.
How long do you think your granddad had it?
He probably had it at least 60 years or better.
At first glance, this object appears to be nothing more than a clay vessel shaped like a bird. But the longer you look, the more it feels like it is trying to tell a story, one written not in words, but in symbols. This piece was made along the northern Rio Grande in New Mexico by Pueblo potters, most likely from the Cochiti or Santo Domingo communities, sometime in the late 19th century. Although it functions as a water pitcher, its form and decoration go far beyond simple utility. The bird shape is intentional. In Pueblo belief, birds serve as messengers between the earthly world and the upper world of clouds and rain. Across the surface, geometric forms represent clouds, while downward-pointing lines and white dashes symbolize falling rain. A bolt of lightning descends from above, completing the cycle that brings life to the land. Along the lower band, deer are shown gazing skyward, waiting for rain so grass may grow, because agriculture, animals, and human life are inseparable. A small dog appears as well, a reminder of companionship and protection, deeply rooted in tribal tradition. Though this vessel was likely created for trade rather than ceremonial use, the imagery itself is ancient, drawn from beliefs over 1,000 years old. Handmade from locally gathered clay and worn through real use, this piece quietly preserves a worldview where nature, survival, and spirituality were inseparable.
I would say on a retail basis, this would be worth approximately $6,500.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Oh, gosh. This was not something I was expecting for certain.
My mother had given it to me, and it had been given to her by a family friend and had gone down a couple generations. The friend who provided this to my mother, she traveled extensively through Europe. She was just very close to my mom, and then when she gave it to her. So I really know very little about it.
She gave your mother a really fine gift.
Really?
At first encounter, this figure feels less like a ceramic object and more like a moment suspended in decoration. It is an exceptional example of Art Nouveau porcelain by the Amphora Porcelain Company, produced in Turnteplitz, Bohemia, around 1900 to 1905. Amphora was one of the most innovative ceramic firms of the period, and this work is attributed to the sculptor and designer Nikolaus Kanhäuser, whose figures are prized for their elegance and complexity. The piece bears the RSTK mark, standing for Riesner, Stellmacher, and Kessel, one of the key partnerships behind Amphora's finest output. What immediately distinguishes this figure is the richness of its surface treatment. The decoration unfolds in layers, moving from painted and gilded areas to raised enamel work and jewel-like embellishments known as bijoux, a hallmark of Amphora's most ambitious designs. Stylized trees, flowers, and geometric forms surround the central figure, creating a visual rhythm that recalls the ornamental language of Gustav Klimt and the broader Viennese secession. The translucent glazes, metallic highlights, and applied faux jewels work together to produce a sense of depth and luminosity rarely achieved in porcelain. The figure's crown, posture, and elaborate setting indicate a high-end variant of the model, made in a larger size with maximum decorative elements.
As an estimate, easily would be $3,000 to $4,000.
Wow.
In a shop, most likely more than that, more like $5,000, perhaps up. She could have been smaller. She could have had less going on around her. She could not have had a crown. She's got it all.
Yeah.
She's a real winner.
Wow. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. When I saw it, you brought this up, my heart skipped a beat.